What's a YouTube day here from Zephyr Wargames, bringing you another list of the best. So I would say top 10 of the list, or 10 of the best, but this one is 15. So I'm going to do a 15 card of the 15 of the best extra deck cards for today's meta. I do also have a second pile here, which is just honourable mentions that I couldn't fit into the top 15. But these 15 cards here, in my own opinion, are probably the best ones. Now, even if you disagree that the individual card isn't the best, its effect is kind of what I believe is kind of best for this meta. So, for example, I've got DD Crow here, and obviously I don't have Ally of Justices. However, I feel that DD Crow, even though it only targets one, the fact that it targets one card instead of obviously light monsters, so it's less specific, which means it's more generic for other decks such as Dark Magicians, DDs, Blue Eyes. It can cover a lot more ground, which is why he's in here and not the other guys. So, as we were speaking, we'll start off with DD Crow. Let me just zoom in for you a bit there, guys. See a bit more clearly. There we go. Right, so DD Crow, again, the fact that he is a hand trap and it's you discard it and then to target one card in the graveyard, banish that target. So, for example, you can target, because it's only one card, you can target Dark Magician if the opponent activates Eternal Soul. You can target Blue Eyes if they activate Silver's Cry or Return. You can target Return if they have that in their graveyard. For Cyber Angels, you can target all of their spells. For DDs, you can target their fusion monsters when they want to try and use it with Genghis and stuff like that. So to me, DD Crow is probably one of the better side deck cards for this meta at the moment. Now, obviously, there are alternative cards for specific decks. I mean, like there's Kaiko the Ghost Destroyer. Like I said before, there's the Ally of Justices if you're going against specific decks. But as a generic whole, DD Crow is a lot better, in my opinion, to target multiples. So if you go to an event and you don't know what type of decks you're going to face, but you know the chances are they're going to be using stuff in their graveyard that you're going to want to try and disrupt, I would say go with DD Crow. It's the safest bet. Next up is Effect Veiler. Again, pretty standard. There's very few cards that don't normal summon and want their effects to go off, so Effect Veiler's in there. Now, I've put Effect Veiler alongside Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbits. Now, obviously, the difference between these two is Effect Veiler stops the effect. Ghost Ogre allows the effect to go through, but then disrupts the play by destroying the monster after the effect's resolved. And obviously, it can target spells and traps. So it's a bit more relevant against Dark Magicians now because you can target Eternal Souls, you can target Circles, and then obviously you can target Scales and stuff like that as well in other decks. So it just helps you get past continuous spell cards, trap cards, and just general monster effects as well. So unless the monster's effect is devastating, you get to clear them off the board and it slows them down. Next one up is Flying Sea, because there is a big amount of decks out there that are XYZ in at the moment. Again, it's not as high a priority, I would say, in your extra deck in comparison to these other cards, but Flying Sea still does its job. I mean, burning PKs, it slows them down massively unless they get a Rubik on board, and then obviously they have to then have Virgil in their extra deck. So it's not perfect against a huge range of decks, but it's definitely perfect against a big enough amount of decks to be merited into this list. Next up, Vanity's Fiend. Now this can easily be Vanity's Emptiness, but if you don't main it, some people do main Vanity's Emptiness. The difference with Vanity's Fiend is obviously the fact is he's a 24 beater, so he can't go like Vanity's Emptiness when another card is popped. So he helps solidify the field a bit more, but it does mean that you have to build up your field first, or your deck has to not rely on special summoning, which again is why he's probably further along down the bottom of the list and not always in an extra deck. Same with Majesty's Fiend, exact same. Obviously, special summon monsters' effects cannot be activated. So again, if you're not going to be special summoning a huge amount, Majesty Fiend can go straight in there and slow it down quite massively for your opponent to kind of get a bit stuck in that. There's 2 seconds, guys. I'm just trying to find the next card. There we go. So yeah, Majesty's Theme puts in quite a bit of work, and again, it affects more of a wider range of decks than just specific individuals. Now I've got Gamma-Seal, the Sea Turtle Kaiju. This can be any Kaiju. So Gamma-Seal is obviously the ideal one that everyone uses. So this just gets over unbeatable boards. So your Maxes, your Destroyers, even your Bonds, your Crystal Wings, anything like that, it gets past them. So Gamma-Seal is obviously the one that everybody uses because it's the lowest attack. However, for certain decks, so I mean if you're playing Dark Magicians with Allures or DDDs with Allures or anything with Allures or level 7s, level 8s, however like that, you can put in different types of Kaijus. So obviously with Gamma-Seal being an 8, you can put this in a Blue Eyes deck, no problem, and you've got a trade-in target if you brick with it. The Spider Kaiju, Sticky and Raiden are also good targets in a level 7 deck with Swords of 7 and Allures and stuff like that. So this Kaiju can be pretty much anyone you want, but I definitely say Kaijus is probably one of the first on the list when it going into your extra deck. Now onto the spell extra deck cards. I personally like Prohibition. Now it's not the best card, it won't be going in every deck, every side deck, but it does get overlooked a bit more than I think it should do. So the reason I like Prohibition is because no matter what you face, you can always put Prohibition in. There will never be a bad time to put Prohibition in. Now, if you put in more than one Prohibition, you put in 2, put in 3, you can kind of lock your opponent out. So, I mean, you could technically, if no one runs MSTs, but some people do these days, you could dump down one Prohibition and call their main card. So you could call Dark Magician Circle, Blue Eyes, Metaphors Fusion, anything like that. And then if you drop a second Prohibition, you can call Twin Twister or MST just to stop them popping it. So it's not perfect, but I feel that, again, if you don't know what you're going to be facing, or you think you're going to be facing such a wide range of decks, Prohibition is a really nice, safe one to go with. Next up is System Down. Now, this is probably more relevant when the ABCs release next week, because they're obviously machines and it can clear them out. It obviously used to hurt Cosmos when they were top and floating around. So again, this is probably below the lower part of the list because it doesn't hit as wide a range of decks, but it still is quite devastating to stuff like ABCs, which is coming out. Next one up is Magical Springs. Again, lower down the list because it's really more specific. So, I mean, you could activate Magical Springs against Dark Magicians just to draw the cards, but then their spells and traps are protected for that turn. But the main reason you use this is a quick play against Metal Foes and slows them down. So again, Magical Springs is more specific, but it does its job near enough to perfection, which is why if you think you're going to be coming up against Metal Foes, or you think that it'll be a good draws against Dark Magician, put those in. Next up, Imperial Iron Wall. Now, I think this card is going to see a heck of a lot more play now, especially when ABCs are coming out, because obviously this will slow down Dark Magicians big time. Their circles can't go off, their bonds can't go off. Obviously, it slows down ABCs because can't be banishing to get Buster out. It also hurts Cosmos if they're still around, and it will also hurt any other deck that likes to banish stuff. So Blue Eyes and other decks like that are circling around the meta at this moment in time. Next up, Anti-Spell Fragrance. Not much more really needs to be said about this card. It kills Pendulums. Like, Pendulums are dead the second you drop this, especially if you drop 2 on them. And then it slows down every other deck that runs spells at such a high pace. Next one up is Stygian Dirge. Now, the reason I put Dirge in here is because it hurts a big range of decks. So especially Blue Eyes, it slows them down massively because they can't XZs and they can't Synchro. Because all their Synchros and all their XZs are so specific that the second you take a level off them, they're stuck. So straight away, you take them down on their Synchros, they can only go into 8s, so they can't activate any of their 9s. You take out their XYZ, so unless they're, I don't know why, but unless they put a level 7 in there, they're not getting past it. It also slows down Dark Magicians at this moment in time, because they're being played pure with level 7s in there, and not level 6s, you slow them down, they can't get into their XZ's plays, but then obviously Circle can then target and banish it and clear it. So Dirge slows down all them types of decks. It will also slow down Burning PK and stuff like that. The only thing it won't touch is stuff that contact fuse or doesn't rely on levels on field or in hand. Next up is Mistake. Now, the amount of decks that are adding cards to their hand at this moment in time is crazy. However, the biggest gamble with Mistake, even though it's really good and locks their opponent out, you need to make sure that it's not going to absolutely wreck you. So if it's going to wreck you, you don't put it in, obviously. But the fact is, if your opponent is constantly adding to their hand, drop a Mistake on them. And some people, this doesn't see as much play as it used to do, but because it doesn't, some people won't be expecting it. Take the camera out. And again, last card art is Vanity's Emptiness. Now this is basically here because if you don't main it, side it. There's very, very, very few decks that rely on just normal summon, normal summon, normal summon. So Vanity's Emptiness can seriously disrupt plays and slow them down massively. So that's it for the top 15. I'll spread them back out in a minute. But now just for some honourable mentions. So cards that didn't quite make the top 15 in my opinion, but are still really, really good and probably a little bit cheaper or easier to get than some of the other cards. So, first one out is Thunderking Bro. It's kind of like your Mistake, but then the ability to negate a special summon. And obviously the difference between this and Mistake is if you need this gone, you can clear it off to then unleash your board. Next up is Battle Fader. Now, not so much Battle Fader specifically, but with the ability of some decks to OTK or just push for full boards, I think possibly floating around the 15, your 15 extra deck should be a way of stopping OTKs. So stuff like Battle Fader, my personal preference is Speedroid Menko. I know it doesn't stop the battle phase, however, it does. It is a level 4 and it shifts them all to defense, so it'll stop out Chaos Max and stuff like that. And it means you can have back row and other elements like that. You do have really other good cards like you could, as a tech, put in Psyframe Law, Psyframe Beta, the one that ends the battle phase and then destroys the attacking monster. But then obviously it gets banished at the end phase. So it's really just up to you. But I feel that a card that you could draw into, because then it makes the feeling of top decking Max C a little bit less redundant. I mean, if you have a clear board and you're dropping Max C, or you've just got less things to fear if your opponent does somehow clear the board, you know you could be drawing into a way of stopping your opponent going through the game. Next up as an honourable mention is Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. Now again, this is just more specific because for the pure fact is to make this work, you then need to either be expecting to face a heck of a lot of mirror matches, or your extra deck has to be the same, or you specifically side in or main those cards. So for example, I have seen people play this, side this in with because they main a Blue Eyes Spirit in their extra deck and they're playing Dark Magicians. Or when the ABCs come out, you can put a Buster in there and then side this in. So again, it's really more, which is why it didn't get into the top 10, because it's more specific. Next up is kind of like a two-part card, so Cyber Dragon and Cyber Tech Fortress Dragon. Now this card will be amazing against ABCs because you can drop a Cyber Dragon on them and then fuse with their ABC machine monsters to get Fortress. Now obviously it's not the best thing because yes, it helps you get a Fortress on board, but then you're putting their machines in the grave for them anyway. However, it can work with stuff like Cosmos and other cards like that, and it does help get past machine decks. Again, because it's more specific, and the fact that it's a 2-card combo to try and work into your extra deck is why it didn't make into the top 15. Next one is Necro Valley. Now, I really like Necro Valley. I played it at Euros and Euros and Regionals, and it worked really well for me. And it kind of helps with Dark Magicians and anything that wants to play around with the grave. So it will stop out zombies unless it's their own effect. It stops out Call of the Haunted, and then so basically negate the effects of spell, trap, and monster cards that affect a card or cards in the graveyard. Neither player can remove cards in the graveyard from play. Also, as long as this card remains face on the field, increase attack and defense or gravekeeper monsters. So it's kind of like just a negate for the field, for the graveyard. If your opponent really likes playing around with their graveyard, this stops them down. Next honourable mention is Ceasefire. Just for the pure fact that it might be quite fun one day to play it as a tech, so that when you hit the extra deck in time or anything like that, you can flip that and burn. It's just a little tech, bit of fun. Chaos Track Pole, because the amount of lights and darks out there at the moment, Chaos Track Hole is really good to put in. Rivalry of the Warlords. Now, it's less relevant now because there are so many decks that are playing the same kind of types. So, but it can also be good if you're going up against mixed match decks. And then the last one is the Grave of the Super Ancient Organisms, purely because Dark Magicians and Blue Eyes are So that's kind of it for the for my personal top 15 for extra deck cards, and obviously some honourable mentions there. Now, again, the biggest issue I've got is I do only have 15 spaces, so I can't guarantee to get everyone's favourite card in there, and I probably have missed out some cards that deserve to be in here, or maybe tech that could be amazing. So if you do have any little techs like that you think have worked really well for you in your extra deck going against certain cards, then let us know in the comments below. Again, this is just obviously opinionated, nothing is set in stone. These are just cards I have personally found have helped me in decks, that when I've dropped them, they've locked out. And the fact that these are more generic, these are more cards that you could put in any side deck, give or take a couple of cards like Mistakes, and Flying Sea, not Flying Sea, sorry, Vanities. So you can pretty much put them in any deck to kind of slow down your opponent or hurt your opponent, and that's really what side decks are there for. They're there to help you balance out the playing field when you know what you're up against, and just to give you that helping hand in a match. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Let us know what you think, again, in the descriptions below. Give us a big thumbs up to the video. We appreciate all your support. We're really enjoying what we're doing. And again, keep an eye out for next week, because we will have a giveaway for ABC decks and gadget decks. Magnet Warrior decks, sorry. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks again. And as always, guys, happy dueling. If you like that video, why not check out our other videos available? We've got more deck profiles, pack openings, and of course duels. And don't forget to click on the most important button of all, that subscribe button, right in the bottom left hand corner. So thanks for watching this video. We hope you can join us some more. And as always, happy dueling, guys.